Namaste, welcome to my channel, and I'm starting a new playlist called SGRA Recommends or SGRA Reviews. SGRA Reviews. So it will primarily be books, sometimes movies, sometimes cultural events. So this is the first book. What the West Should Learn from India, Insights from a German Diplomat. Wlater J Lindner. Wlater J Lindner, What the West Should Learn from India, Insights from a German Diplomat. Now, the title is a bit clickbaity because the West is not going to learn anything from India, except, the West steals from India. The West doesn't learn anything from India because learning would require acknowledgement of the debt, and that is something that they are congenitally incapable of doing. However, I will say that Mr. Herr Lindner, is a person who is at least not prejudiced against India per se. He genuinely wants to be a friend. He genuinely wants to build better relationships between the two countries and between India and the West. He understands that India cannot be ignored anymore, that India and China are too big, too powerful, too economically strong to be sidelined. He understands that most of the Western perceptions about India are stuck somewhere in the 1970s. He understands that the West is moving in most of its decisions about India is from a very, very paternalistic, patronizing point of view, and he's against all of that. So overall, I would say yes, he's a friend of India. But I'm going to title the video Western Diplomat Gets India, sort of, but not really. Because let's put it this way. His closest Indian contact is Shashi Tharoor, so that should tell you everything you need to know. You can instantly understand his worldview. You can understand where he's coming from, what are his social positions, what are the things he's likely to find praiseworthy, what are the things he finds disturbing. What I find interesting in the book is that he does not seem to understand something about India, and that is Westerners very rarely get to see the real ordinary Indian. They do not meet the real person, they meet the representative of the person. When an ordinary Indian meets a Westerner, what they are trying to do is they are trying to project an idealized version of themselves. And he does not seem to understand that. He goes to all the secret places, everything, but they are all the famous places. He has only level 1 understanding. He has the tourist brochure understanding, though given the utterly horrific nature of his first experience in India in the 1970s as a backpacker, I think it shows pretty good character on his part that he could put that aside and come back and see India as it was, not through his blinkered prisms of the time. Like I said, it's interesting because he genuinely feels for, it seems so that he genuinely feels for India. He refurbished an ambassador car, painted it red, and then would go for all official events in that. And it was called Anti-Ambi. And it became a famous thing, especially during COVID. So now you can say that this is again a part of the patronizing approach. Oh, how cute, look at what they're still using. And I don't think so. I think he genuinely found the ambassador an interesting aspect of the Indian psyche, and he wanted to participate. I don't think he was patronizing in that. And as he very correctly points out, people can make out when you're patronizing them, and people can make out when you genuinely appreciate something about them. So I think Indians have a very high bullshit detector. We also have a very high pretense model. We pretend to appreciate things. So it's fascinating. I mean, like I said, he does not seem to know any genuinely powerful kshetram, for instance. He knows only all the big names. He goes with a historian, and the historian tells him the story of how the Taj Mahal was overgrown in the jungle, and so he knows the checklist things about India. He does not seem to be able to go one level deeper. He goes to Tirupati Balaji. I don't think he knows about Srikalahasti, which is just a few kilometers away from Tirupati Balaji. Nor do I think he would be interested, because he seems to, like I said, he seems to have just level 1 understanding, which is more than most people, by the way. Most people do not have more than level 1 understanding, so this one, even level 1 understanding is. And why is this book important? Because as Shashi Tharoor and a lot of other people said in their blurbs for the book, that sometimes we get more perspective when we see something from an outsider perspective than when we are looking at it ourselves. Now, to come back to the point about he doesn't seem to understand this business about meeting the representative, the only time that does not seem to be the case is when he goes to Nagpur, to the RSS headquarters, and he comes away with the feeling that he has been given all the answers he thinks he has been given all the answers that they think he would like to hear, which is 100% true. That is absolutely the case. But that is the case in all interactions. He does not seem to get that simple fact. And because he's a friend of Shashi Tharoor, he does not understand that the RSS actually believe all this Sarva Garma Vada Pav bullshit that they keep sprouting, same DNA, and he simply does not comprehend that because he's got these ideological blinkers on. But it is a book where the person is genuinely trying. See, he's what in our youth we used to call, we don't call that anymore because it's a rude word, we call them pansy liberals. He's a musician, and he genuinely, whenever he takes charge in a new country as the ambassador to that country, the first fellow ambassador he will meet will always be the Israeli ambassador. That is because of his guilt over the Holocaust and things like that. So you can again understand where he's coming from. And that guilt that Germans feel over that is why they're going to go under Sharia in 50 years or less, which is a whole another story. Again, he does not seem to understand that. And he takes the Tharoorian Congress view of Hindu-Muslim relationships as a given, that it is the only correct way to look at it. And I'm like, how is such an empathetic, intelligent man so completely oblivious? Now, if you're friends with Tharoor, I suppose you have to be oblivious, but again, you cannot expect more from people. I have found that unless Westerners are actually Hindus, they simply do not get the Hindu point of view, and they are actively hostile to the Hindu point of view. And it is not just a religious thing, it tends to be a sort of instinctive allergic reaction. Like Carl Gustav Jung he had the daylight scared out of him with India because he was so European, and he understood that India is the antithesis of that. That's a story for another time. But he really was not repulsed, but he was scared by India. He had the equivalent of a mental breakdown when he came to India. So not like that. Our friend Mr. Lindner is not like that. He's a genuine person, and he's also genuinely clueless. But I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating because of the nature of his post, and he gets access to all parts of the country. He's a very curious person, so he goes to a shipbreaking yard, he goes to coal mines. He's genuinely, he wants to know if the horror stories are true. And you would think that he would be like, oh, this is all exploitation of poor people, but his views are much more nuanced than that. He understands that while yes, it is exploitative, there is also the aspect that it is an economic, there is many people there have no choice except to work. He's not just a knee-jerk liberal reflex, except when it comes to Hindu-Muslim relation. There he is incorrigible, he is beyond redemption, nothing can be done about him. But he has very nuanced take on these things, which is what I found very interesting, because you don't normally find that in Westerners. They are all black and white. I mean, even a man like Jordan Peterson, he should be ashamed of himself, honestly. The kind of pathetic 19th century colonial views that he holds about India. And I can say that our German ambassador is nothing like that. He's a very sensible man. I just wish that he would break out of that liberal bubble, he would break out of that Chanakya Puri bubble, and he would sincerely make an attempt to talk to Hindus who are not Shashi Tharoor sort of Hindus, like actual Hindus, and understand their perspective also. But overall, it's a book, I would say that yes, it's well worth reading, it's well worth your money. You don't have to agree with everything, but you can still find something interesting and insightful. That's my take on the book. I shall be doing many reviews like that. I do not intend to pretend to be neutral about it and all that. I'm not going to be neutral. I'm always going to take a Hindu dharmic point of view, and that's going to be my filter through which I see all these books or whatever I'm reviewing. But so this is our first episode, SGRA Reviews. Welcome everybody, enjoy, read the book. It's, like I said, it's an interesting, it's not a waste of time, it's quite useful. Okay, Sarvam Shivamaya.